The Grand Assembly Hall floated in the darkness of space like a jewel made of light and crystal. It orbited nothing, held in place by technology so old that even the eldest races barely remembered how it worked. Inside the massive structure, thousands of beings from across the galaxy had gathered. Some had bodies made of flesh. Others were creatures of pure energy. Some existed as clouds of thinking gas, while others appeared as living metal that moved and breathed. Ambassador Chen Wei walked down the long pathway toward the center of the hall. His shoes made soft sounds against the floor that seemed to be made of frozen starlight. He was human, and that meant he was considered young by everyone watching. Humanity had only joined the Galactic Council 300 years ago. To beings who lived for thousands of years, that was like yesterday. Chen could feel their eyes on him. Thousands of different kinds of eyes, some physical and some not. Many of those gazes carried pity. Others held contempt. A few held curiosity, but not many. Humans were the newcomers, the primitives who had barely figured out how to travel faster than light when the council found them. The center of the hall opened up into a vast, circular chamber. Floating platforms held the representatives of the elder races, arranged in a sphere that put Chen at the very center. Above him floated the Vistari, beings that looked like living crystals in the shape of many pointed stars. They sang instead of speaking, and their voices sounded like glass bells ringing in perfect harmony. To his left drifted the Luminarchs, creatures that had no solid form at all. They were beings of pure light and energy, their consciousness held together by forces that human science still struggled to understand. When they spoke, they made patterns of color that translators changed into words. The Crotha Collective occupied several platforms to his right. They were strange beings, part machine and part living tissue, their civilization having merged with their technology so completely that no one could say where the biology ended and the machinery began. They looked like sculptures of chrome and bone, beautiful and disturbing at the same time. There were others, the Stelliform, who lived in the coronas of stars and rarely visited normal space, the Deepborn, who made their homes in the crushing depths of gas giants, the Meridian Choir, who existed in 7 dimensions but could only partially manifest in normal space. Dozens of ancient races, each with technology that made human achievements look like children, playing with sticks and stones. At the highest point of the sphere sat the Council Paramount, the 5 oldest and most powerful civilizations. They had witnessed the birth and death of thousands of younger species. They had built wonders that spanned solar systems. They had unlocked secrets of physics that humans were only beginning to imagine. The first speaker, a Vistari elder whose crystal body showed veins of deep blue that spoke of unimaginable age, rang out across the chamber. The translation came through clearly in Chen's earpiece. The human delegation is recognized. You have been summoned to address the crisis that threatens all civilized space. You are aware of the situation? Chen bowed slightly, a gesture of respect but not submission. We are aware, first speaker. The Great Darkening has consumed 1,700 star systems in the past 50 years. The rate of spread is accelerating. A murmur of sound swept through the chamber. Whistles, chimes, electromagnetic pulses, and sounds that human ears could not properly process without technological assistance. The translation software in Chen's ear worked overtime to convert it all into something his brain could understand. Mostly it was fear and frustration. One of the Luminarchs pulsed with red and orange light. 1,743 systems, to be precise. But you missed the deeper horror, young human. These stars are not dying because they are old. They are dying decades, sometimes centuries, before they should. The fusion processes in their cores are failing. The stellar material is collapsing inward, and we cannot stop it. A Crotha representative spoke next, its voice a blend of organic vocal cords and electronic synthesis. We have sent probe ships into affected stars. We have deployed stellar stabilization matrices. We have attempted to reignite the fusion processes with energy infusions that could power your entire civilization for 1,000 years. Nothing works. The stars die, and we do not know why. Chen listened, his face carefully neutral. He had reviewed all the data on the way to the council station. He knew exactly how bad things were. The projections showed that if the Great Darkening continued at its current rate, nearly half the galaxy would go cold within a century. Trillions of beings would die. Thousands of civilizations would end. The first speaker rang again, a note of crystalline sadness in its tone. The Council has deliberated. We have pooled our knowledge, our technology, our greatest minds. We have failed. Every approach we have attempted has proven insufficient. We are watching the galaxy die, and we are powerless to prevent it. Silence filled the chamber. It was a heavy thing, that silence, full of despair and the weight of coming darkness. Then the first speaker's tone changed, becoming harder. The Council has therefore decided to implement emergency protocols. All resources must be directed toward preserving what can be preserved. Non-essential civilizations will be relocated to fortified systems where we can guarantee stellar stability for at least 10,000 years. Populations will be consolidated. Territory will be abandoned. Chen felt a cold understanding settle over him. He knew what was coming next. Humanity, the first speaker continued, is classified as a non-essential civilization. You number only 43 billion individuals across 12 star systems. Your technology is limited. Your knowledge of stellar mechanics is in its infancy. You have contributed little to the Council beyond curiosity and enthusiasm. Therefore, you will be among the first to be relocated. Another Vestari spoke up, this one with veins of pale green in its crystal body. This is for your own protection, you must understand. We are moving humanity to reservation worlds in the sanctuary zone. You will be safe there. Your species will survive. As pets, Chen said quietly. But his translator carried the words to every being in the chamber. The green-veined Vestari made a sound like wind chimes in a storm. That is an uncharitable interpretation. You will be guests, wards of the Council. Your species is young. You deserve a chance to grow, even if the rest of the galaxy falls into darkness. A luminarch pulsed with patronizing yellow light. You must understand your limitations, young human. We have tried everything. The Vestari have technology that can manipulate stellar plasma with precision you cannot imagine. The Crotha can interface directly with the quantum processes of fusion. The stelliform literally live inside stars. If we cannot solve this crisis, what makes you think humanity could contribute anything meaningful? Chen looked up at the sphere of ancient beings surrounding him. He saw it clearly now. They had already decided. This meeting was not a call for help. It was a notification. Humanity would be moved to the reservation worlds, and that would be that. The Council would save who they could and abandon the rest. Humanity was not worth saving as an independent civilization. The first speaker asked if we were aware of the situation. Chen said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. I said we were aware. I did not say we were helpless. That got their attention. The Vestari rang with notes of surprise. The luminarchs flashed with curious colors. The Crotha shifted on their platforms, mechanical parts whirring. Explain yourself, the first speaker demanded. Chen reached into his jacket and pulled out a small device. It looked simple, almost primitive compared to the technology surrounding him. Just a small rectangle of brushed metal with a single button on it. He held it up so they could all see. Humanity would like to offer a solution to the Great Darkening, he said. Laughter. Not human laughter, but the equivalent from dozens of alien species. The Vestari rang with sounds like breaking glass. The luminarchs pulsed with colors of amusement. One of the Crotha actually made a sound that the translator converted as absurd. Young human, the first speaker said, and its tone was almost kind, like an adult explaining reality to a child. We appreciate your courage. But humanity joined the Galactic Council only 3 centuries ago. Your technology is centuries behind the least advanced council member. You have barely explored your own star system. You have no stellar manipulation technology beyond basic solar collectors. What could you possibly offer that the combined wisdom of the elder races has not already attempted? Chen smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone holding cards that nobody else at the table could imagine. First speaker, what if I told you that humanity has been members of the Galactic Council for only 300 years, but we have been studying stellar engineering for 800 years? Silence again, but different this time. Confused, alert. A Crotha delegate leaned forward on its platform. That is impossible. Humanity did not even have interstellar capability 800 years ago. Our first contact with your species found you still confined to your birth world. That is correct, Chen agreed. 847 years ago, we were still on Earth. But 812 years ago, we found something on Titan, one of the moons orbiting our 6th planet. We found ruins, very old ruins. We found the workshops of the progenitors. The entire chamber erupted. Every species had legends of the progenitors. the mythical first civilization that had supposedly existed billions of years ago. Some elder races believed they were real, others thought they were just stories, explanations for the strange artifacts that sometimes appeared in the deepest, oldest parts of space. Impossible. A luminarch blazed with red light. The progenitors are myth. Even if they were real, any ruins would have been found by the elder races long ago. We have searched the galaxy for evidence of them for millions of years. Chen shook his head. You searched the galaxy. You did not search our solar system thoroughly because you thought we were too young, too primitive to have anything interesting. You surveyed us from orbit, saw we had no advanced technology and moved on. You never sent expeditions to our outer planets. Why would you? We were just another primitive species, barely worthy of council membership. The first speaker's voice rang out, demanding silence. The chamber slowly quieted. If what you say is true, the first speaker said slowly, show us proof. Chen pressed the button on his device. Throughout the chamber, holographic displays suddenly appeared, showing images that made the assembled beings gasp in their various ways. Pictures of vast underground chambers on Titan, filled with machinery that seemed to fold in impossible directions. Blueprints written in mathematics that predated the elder races by eons. Fragments of technology that made even the Council's most advanced equipment look primitive. For 800 years, Chen said quietly, humanity has been studying progenitor technology. We kept it secret because we knew that if the Council discovered what we had found, you would take it from us. You would classify us as guardians of a heritage site, strip us of independence and lock us away while you studied what we had discovered. More images appeared. These showed human scientists working in hidden laboratories, massive construction projects in the dark spaces between stars, ships being built, enormous vessels with designs that incorporated both human engineering and progenitor principles. We learned, Chen continued. We studied, we built. The reason our public technology seems so far behind the Council's is because all of our real advancement has been focused on one project, one goal. We have been reverse engineering progenitor stellar engineering technology. A stelliform representative, a being of plasma and magnetic fields, spoke in a voice like the roar of a sun. Stellar engineering? The progenitors could manipulate stars? The progenitors did not just manipulate stars, Chen said. According to their records, they built the first generation of stars after the Big Bang. They were the architects of the early universe. They seeded the galaxy with the light that made life possible, and humanity has unlocked their secrets. The chamber was absolutely silent now. Every being present was focused entirely on the human standing at the center of the sphere. Chen looked up at the first speaker. Humanity requests permission to demonstrate a solution to the Great Darkening. Give us one dying star. One system you have already evacuated and given up for lost. Give us 3 weeks. If we succeed, humanity retains our independence and assists the Council in fighting the darkening. If we fail, we will accept relocation to the reservation worlds without protest. And if you succeed? The first speaker asked. What then? Chen's smile grew wider. Then the Council will need to reconsider who the primitive species really are. The first speaker was silent for a long moment, its crystal body pulsing with deep blue light. Then it rang out across the chamber. The Council will vote. All in favor of granting humanity this demonstration? The vote was not unanimous, but it did not need to be. Enough of the Council members were curious or desperate or simply willing to let humanity fail publicly. The motion passed. You have your chance, Ambassador Chen Wei, the first speaker declared. The Tarsus system has been dying for 20 years. We have evacuated all Crotha citizens from its planets. It is a dead system now. If you can bring light back to Tarsus, then humanity will have earned a voice in these chambers. But if you fail, if this is merely youthful arrogance, then you will accept the Council's judgment. Chen bowed, deeper this time. Understood, first speaker. We will not fail. As he turned to leave the chamber, he heard the whispers and songs and electromagnetic pulses of conversation erupting behind him. Let them talk, he thought. Let them speculate and doubt and wonder. In 3 weeks, they would see what humanity had been building in the darkness. They would learn that the youngest species in the Council had been preparing for this moment for 800 years. And they would learn that humanity, as always, refused to accept defeat. Dr. Sarah Okonkwo stood in the observation deck of Luna Base and watched Earth rotate slowly below. The blue and white marble hung in the darkness like a jewel. The the cradle of humanity, the world where everything had begun. She had been born there 73 years ago, and she still thought it was the most beautiful thing in the universe. Her communication device chimed. The message was brief, just 2 words. Protocol star right. Sarah closed her eyes and took a deep breath. After 800 years of secrecy, after generations of hidden work and careful deception, the moment had finally come. Humanity was about to reveal what they had been building in the darkness. She activated her command interface and began sending coded messages to locations scattered across human space and beyond. Each message was identical, each one triggering responses from facilities that officially did not exist. Within minutes, acknowledgments started coming back. Forge Prime confirmed. Titan Archive confirmed. Kuiper Yards confirmed. Deep Station 17 confirmed. On and on. 47 facilities responding that they were ready. Sarah made her way through Luna Base's corridors, moving from the public sections where council observers occasionally visited, into the restricted zones that no outsider had ever seen. She passed through 7 security checkpoints, each one using scanning technology that checked not just her identity but her intentions, reading brain patterns to ensure she was not under coercion or control. The final checkpoint opened onto an elevator that descended deep into the moon's interior. Sarah had made this journey thousands of times, but it never stopped being awe-inspiring. The elevator dropped for nearly 5 minutes, plunging into chambers that had been carved out over centuries, hidden construction zones where humanity's real work had been done. The doors opened onto the Archive Central, a vast chamber filled with holographic displays and storage banks containing humanity's most precious secret. The room was already full of people, scientists, engineers, military commanders, and politicians, all of them part of the inner circle that knew the truth about Project Genesis. Admiral Marcus Zhao saw her first. "Sarah, it is time then," she nodded. Chen triggered the protocol. "The Council has given us 3 weeks to prove ourselves with the Tarsus system. 3 weeks. Marcus shook his head. "We have been preparing for 8 centuries and they give us 3 weeks. "It is enough," Sarah said. "The Forge ships are ready. The crews have been training their entire lives for this. 3 weeks is more than we need." She moved to the central display and activated the full historical record, the complete story of how humanity had gotten here. The others gathered around even though they all knew the story. Sometimes, on the eve of something momentous, it helped to remember where you had come from. The display showed images from 812 years ago. The survey ship Magellan exploring the outer solar system, landing on Titan. At that time, humanity had barely begun to explore their own star system. They had only simple settlements on Mars and Luna, primitive by modern standards. The Magellan had been one of the first ships capable of reaching the outer planets. What they found on Titan changed everything. The entrance had been buried under frozen methane and water ice, hidden by time and the moon's hostile environment. The survey team almost missed it entirely, but their ground-penetrating radar had caught something odd, geometric patterns too perfect to be natural. When they excavated, they found a doorway that had been sealed for billions of years. The chambers beyond were enormous, vast spaces carved into Titan's interior, and they were full of technology. Not broken remnants or scattered artifacts, but functional workshops, laboratories, and something that looked like a massive library of knowledge stored in crystalline matrices that still held their data after eons of waiting. The survey team immediately understood the significance. They also understood the danger. If the other spacefaring races learned that humanity had found a progenitor site, they would swoop in and take it. Humanity would become caretakers at best, prisoners at worst, guarding a heritage that would be taken from them. So the team made a decision. They reported finding extensive water ice deposits on Titan, perfect for supporting future colonization. They said nothing about the chambers. They said nothing about the technology. And they sealed the entrance again, carefully making it look natural. When they returned to Earth, they brought with them the first fragments of progenitor knowledge. And humanity's secret history began. The display showed the early years of study, scientists working in hidden laboratories trying to understand technology that was billions of years old. The progenitors had left detailed records, fortunately. They had wanted their knowledge to be found, to be used. But their technology was so far beyond human understanding that simply reading their instructions was not enough. It was like giving calculus textbooks to people who had just invented counting. It took decades to understand even the basics. The progenitors had mastered control over fundamental forces that humanity was only beginning to study. They could manipulate matter at the quantum level, fold space without needing massive energy expenditures, and directly affect the nuclear processes that powered stars. "This is where it gets interesting," Sarah said, pointing to a section of the timeline. Year 74 of the project. "We made first contact with the Galactic Council." The others nodded. They all remembered the debates that had raged when the Council ships had arrived at Earth. The Council had been friendly enough, offering humanity membership and access to interstellar trade networks. But the inner circle of scientists working on the progenitor technology had argued fiercely about what to do. Should they reveal what they had found? Should they ask the Council for help in understanding it? Or should they keep the secret and continue working alone? In the end, the decision was made to keep silent. The Council's own legends spoke of the progenitors with reverence and fear. If the elder races learned that humanity possessed a progenitor archive, they would never let humanity keep it. The technology was too valuable, too dangerous, too important. So humanity joined the Council and deliberately kept their technology at a primitive level. They shared basic fusion drives, simple energy weapons, and computational systems that were adequate but not impressive. They let the Council believe that humanity was just another young race, enthusiastic but limited. Meanwhile, in the hidden facilities throughout the solar system and in secret bases beyond, the real work continued. Human scientists slowly decoded progenitor knowledge. Engineers built prototypes in remote locations where Council observers would never visit. Mathematicians developed new equations to describe forces that should not exist. The display showed images of the first breakthrough. Year 193. A team working in the Kuiper Belt successfully created a stable quantum field that could interact with stellar plasma. It lasted for only 3 seconds before collapsing, but those 3 seconds proved that progenitor stellar engineering was possible. The pace of progress accelerated. More breakthroughs came, each one building on the last. By year 300, humanity had built their first full-scale prototype, a ship called the Forge. It was enormous, 50 kilometers long, covered in geometric patterns that incorporated both human engineering and progenitor designs. The Forge's maiden voyage had been a carefully guarded secret. They took it to a remote location, far from any Council patrols, and tested it on a small red dwarf star that was entering its final phases of life. The ship's crew activated the stellar manipulation systems and the star responded. Its fusion processes stabilized. Its output increased. The dying star was healed. "I still remember watching the data come in from that first test," Sarah said softly. "I was young then, just starting my career. I thought we had achieved the impossible, and then I learned that it was just the beginning. Because healing a dying star was one thing, but the progenitor record spoke of much more. They spoke of creating stars from nothing, of igniting fusion in clouds of hydrogen that would naturally take millions of years to collapse. They spoke of stellar engineering on a scale that could reshape entire regions of the galaxy. Humanity spent the next 500 years perfecting the technology. They built more Forge ships, each one improved over the last. They trained crews who spent their entire lives learning to operate technology that required thinking in dimensions human brains were not naturally designed to process. They established supply chains and support networks, all carefully hidden from Council observation. They also explored more of Titan's chambers and made a discovery that changed the scope of the entire project. Deep in the archive, they found progenitor warnings, records that spoke of something the progenitors called the architects of entropy. The display showed the translated text glowing in the air. Sarah read it aloud, even though everyone present had memorized it long ago. "We were the architects of light, the builders of the first stars that illuminated the cosmos after the dark age following creation. We brought order to chaos, structure to void. We were proud of our work, and in our pride we did not see the danger. The universe maintains balance. For every force of creation, there exists a force of destruction. We learned too late that our stellar engineering had attracted the attention of beings older than time, gardeners of entropy who prune the universe when civilizations grow too bold. By the time we understood what we had awakened, it was too late for our civilization. We leave this warning for those who come after. Creation summons destruction. To make light is to invite darkness. Choose carefully. Cheerful, Admiral Zhao muttered. We are about to do exactly what they warned against. Sarah nodded. We debated this for 100 years. Should we continue? Should we use the forged ships at all, knowing the risk? But in the end, we decided that the knowledge was too important. If the galaxy faced another crisis involving stars, humanity needed to be ready. We needed to be able to help. And now the crisis is here, someone else said. The Great Darkening. Stars dying across the galaxy. Sarah pulled up the latest data on the darkening. The pattern was clear. Stars were failing prematurely, their fusion processes stuttering and stopping. The Council's best technology could not stop it or even explain it. But Sarah and her team had studied the progenitor warnings. They had theories. We think the darkening is related to what the progenitors warned about, Sarah said. We think it might be the architects of entropy or something like them. A force that acts to limit stellar formation, to control the amount of light and energy in the universe. And if that is true, then using the forged ships to fight it might be exactly what the progenitors warned against. So we might save the galaxy from the darkening, only to bring down something worse, Zhao said. Yes, but we also might be the only hope the galaxy has. The Council has tried everything with their technology and failed. The forged ships work on different principles based on progenitor science that predates the elder races by eons. If there is a solution to the darkening, we are the ones who have it. Sarah changed the display to show current ship positions. 47 forged ships scattered across human space and beyond. Each one was a masterpiece of engineering, combining human adaptability with progenitor knowledge. Each one was crewed by people who had trained their entire lives for this moment. We have 3 weeks to prove ourselves at Tarsus, Sarah said. Then if we succeed, we begin the real work. We push back the darkening system by system. We save the galaxy or we die trying. She looked around at the assembled group. These were the people who had devoted their lives to Project Genesis. Some were descendants of the original Magellan crew. Others had joined later, recruited into the secret project and sworn to silence. All of them understood the weight of what they were about to do. Send the orders, Sarah commanded. All forged ships are to proceed to their staging points. The Titan Archive remains on full alert, continuing to translate any progenitor records that might help us understand the darkening. Support ships begin moving resources to forward positions. We have hidden for 800 years. Now we step into the light. The room erupted in activity. Commands went out across secure channels. Ships that had been hiding in the dark spaces between stars began moving toward human-controlled systems. Facilities went to full activation status. Thousands of people who had been living double lives, appearing to be normal citizens while secretly working on the greatest project in human history, began preparing for deployment. Sarah watched it all begin and felt a mixture of pride and fear. Pride because humanity had achieved something remarkable. They had taken knowledge from a civilization billions of years dead and made it work. They had built something that could change the course of galactic history. But fear too. Fear because the progenitors had been destroyed by what they awakened. Fear because humanity was about to do exactly what the warning told them not to do. Fear because if they were wrong, if the forged ships brought down the architects of entropy, then humanity would have doomed the entire galaxy. Admiral Zhao came to stand beside her. Second thoughts? Thousands of them, Sarah admitted. But we are committed now. Chen has made the offer. The Council has accepted. In 3 weeks, the galaxy will see what we have built. And then we find out if we are saviors or fools. She pulled up one final image, a rendering of what a forged ship looked like when it was fully activated. The geometric patterns on its hull would glow with light that existed in frequencies beyond normal vision. The ship would sing in harmonics that resonated with the fundamental forces of the universe. And the space around it would ripple as it reached out to touch a star and change it. The progenitors called themselves the architects of the first stars, Sarah said quietly. They brought light to the universe when it was young. Now that light is dying and only we have the tools to save it. I hope we are worthy of their legacy. Zhao nodded. 3 weeks until we find out. 3 weeks until humanity shows the galaxy what we have been hiding. Sarah smiled, though it was tinged with worry. 800 years of secrets. 3 weeks until the revelation. And then the real work begins. The Tarsus system hung in space like a monument to failure. Once it had been home to 3 billion Crotha citizens, their cities built on 12 planets and 40 moons. The star at the center, Tarsus Prime, had been a healthy yellow dwarf that should have burned steadily for another 4 billion years. But the great darkening had come to Tarsus 20 years ago. The star had begun to fail, its fusion processes stuttering like a dying engine. The Crotha had called for help immediately. The Council had responded with their best technology, their finest scientists, their most advanced stellar manipulation equipment. Nothing had worked. Over 2 decades, they had tried everything. Energy infusions that could power entire civilizations had been pumped into the star's core. Stabilization fields had been erected, trying to force the fusion processes back into regular patterns. Crotha engineers, who could interface directly with technology at the quantum level, had attempted to manually restart the nuclear reactions. The star continued to die. The Crotha had been forced to evacuate, abandoning their homeworld and all their settlements. It had been one of the great tragedies of the age, billions of refugees fleeing a dying sun while the Council watched helplessly. Now Tarsus Prime was a pale shadow of its former self, putting out barely 20% of its previous energy. The planets were frozen wastelands. The Crotha cities stood empty, their buildings dark and cold. The entire system was a tomb, and this was where humanity had chosen to make their demonstration. Commander Jessica Torres stood on the bridge of the forged ship Prometheus and watched the fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel. Her ship was the flagship, the largest and most advanced of humanity's stellar engineering vessels. Behind her came 6 more forged ships arranged in a precise formation, and surrounding them were hundreds of support vessels, supply ships, and defense craft. The Council observers had arrived first. They floated in the outer system aboard various types of ships, each one representing a different elder race. Jessica could see Vestari crystal vessels that looked like flying cathedrals, Crotha warships that bristled with weapons, their crews no doubt hoping to see humanity fail at saving their former home. Luminarch energy constructs that were more force fields holding consciousness than actual ships, and dozens of others. They have brought quite an audience, her first officer, Lieutenant Chen Park, observed. Chen Park was the grandson of Ambassador Chen Wei, and he had been training his entire life to serve aboard a forged ship. I count at least 50 observer vessels. They came to watch us fail, Jessica said calmly. The elder races cannot accept that the youngest species in the Council might succeed where they have failed. Let them watch. They will learn. She activated the ship-wide communication system. All crew, this is Commander Torres. We have arrived at Tarsus. In a few hours, we will attempt something that has not been done in billions of years. We will heal a dying star using technology left to us by the progenitors. Every one of you has trained for this moment. Every one of you knows your role. Trust your training. Trust each other. Trust the ship. And trust in the fact that humanity has never accepted the impossible as an answer. She closed the channel and turned to her navigation officer. Take us in. Formation pattern Genesis 7. Signal the other forged ships to match our movements. The Prometheus began moving toward the dying star, and the other 6 forged ships fell into position around it. They formed a geometric pattern, a dodecahedron with Tarsus Prime at its center. Each ship was exactly equidistant from the star and from each of its neighbors. The mathematics required for the positioning were staggering, calculated to within centimeters across distances measured in millions of kilometers. As they moved into position, Jessica watched the reactions from the Council observers. Their communications channels were open, and the translation software gave her a running commentary on what they were saying. The Vestari observers were singing notes of confusion. The Crotha were transmitting skeptical assessments of the human ship's capabilities. The Luminarchs pulsed with patronizing colors, clearly expecting to watch an embarrassing failure. One transmission came through clearly, directed at the human fleet. It was from a Crotha admiral named Vex Corthian, whose family had been among the last to evacuate Tarsus. Human vessels, this is Admiral Vex Corthian. I command you to reconsider this action. Tarsus Prime was my people's home for 10,000 years. You say you can heal our sun, but you have no experience with stellar engineering at this scale. If your attempt goes wrong, you could trigger a premature collapse. The star could go supernova. You could destroy what little remains of our world. Jessica opened a channel to respond. Admiral Vex Corthian, I understand your concern, but the Council has authorized this demonstration. Tarsus Prime is already dying. In another 5 years, it will collapse completely. We are not making things worse. We are offering hope. Hope from primitives, another voice cut in. a luminarc pulsing with red light. The human species has been in space for less than 1,000 years. We have been manipulating stellar mechanics for millions of years. What makes you think your crude technology can accomplish what ours could not? Jessica smiled, though the alien observer could not see her expression. You are about to find out. The Prometheus reached its designated position, directly above the star's north pole at a distance of 50 million kilometers. The other 6 ships locked into their positions around the star's equator, forming the points of the dodecahedron. The entire formation was now in place. All ships report ready, Chen Park announced. Formation geometry is perfect. All systems are operating within normal parameters. Jessica took a deep breath. This was it. 800 years of secrecy, preparation, and work had led to this moment. Either humanity would prove they could save dying stars, or they would fail spectacularly in front of the entire Galactic Council. Engineering. Activate the progenitor systems, she commanded. Deep in the Prometheus, in chambers filled with technology that should not exist according to conventional physics, the stellar manipulation systems came online. The geometric patterns on the ship's hull began to glow, emitting light and frequencies that ranged from hard gamma rays to wavelengths so long they barely qualified as radiation. The other 6 ships activated their systems in perfect synchronization. Across millions of kilometers, 7 forged ships began to sing. It was not sound, not really. Sound could not travel through the vacuum of space, but it was vibration, oscillation at frequencies that resonated with the fundamental forces of the universe. The ships were manipulating space-time itself, creating ripples that spread outward and inward, converging on the dying star. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Jessica watched her displays. She could see the energy readings from the star beginning to change. The fusion processes in its core, which had been stuttering and failing, started to respond to the resonance patterns the forged ships were generating. The star is reacting, her science officer called out. Core temperature increasing. Plasma flow patterns stabilizing. It is working. But it was not enough yet. Healing a star was not a simple matter of pumping energy into it. The Great Darkening did something to the fundamental processes that powered stellar fusion, disrupting the delicate balance of forces that kept a star burning. Simply adding energy would not fix that. You had to reach into the quantum processes at the heart of the star and repair the damage at the most fundamental level. Increase resonance to harmonic level 3, Jessica commanded. All ships synchronize. The song of the forged ships changed, deepening. The vibrations they were creating grew more complex, more intricate. They were not just manipulating matter and energy now. They were reaching into the quantum foam, the underlying structure of reality itself, and adjusting the probability fields that determined how particles behaved. This was what the progenitors had mastered. This was technology that treated the laws of physics not as rigid rules but as suggestions that could be negotiated. With the right mathematics and the right application of force, the dying star began to respond more dramatically. Its output increased, climbing from 20% of normal to 30%. Then 40. The frozen planets of the Tarsus system began to receive more light, more heat, though it would take years for their surfaces to respond to the change. We have the Council observers' attention now, Chen Park said with satisfaction. I am reading massive sensor activity from all their ships. They are scanning everything we do, trying to figure out how we are accomplishing this. Jessica nodded. Let them scan. They would not understand what they were seeing. The principles behind progenitor stellar engineering were so far beyond current galactic technology that it would take the elder races centuries to even begin to grasp them. Core fusion stabilizing, the science officer reported. Stellar output now at 60% and climbing. Commander, this is working better than our simulations predicted. The star is responding beautifully. But Jessica frowned as she looked at the data. Something was off. The star was responding, yes, but there was a pattern in the data that bothered her. The disruption that the Great Darkening had caused was not random. It had structure, purpose. It almost looked like it had been designed. Increase to harmonic level 5, she said. Let us finish this. The forged ships sang louder, their resonance patterns reaching deeper into the star. And Tarsus Prime blazed back to life. The fusion processes in its core reignited fully, not just returning to their previous state but surpassing it. The star achieved a balance it had not known before, a stability that would last for billions of years. Light flooded out across the Tarsus system. The frozen planets began their slow thaw, and the empty Crotha cities, dark for 20 years, were illuminated once more. On the Council observer ships, there was stunned silence. For a long moment, nobody transmitted anything. They were all too shocked by what they had just witnessed. Then Admiral Vex Corthian's voice came through, and for the first time it carried emotion. The Crotha were not known for showing feelings, but Vex Corthian's voice trembled. "You have done it. You have saved our son. After 20 years of watching it die, after evacuating our homeworld, after accepting that Tarsus was lost forever, you have brought it back to life." Jessica allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. But she was not done yet. "Admiral," she said, "we have proven we can heal a dying star. Now let me show you what else we can do." She gave new orders to the fleet. The Ford ships broke formation and began moving to the outer edge of the Tarsus system. There was a massive cloud of hydrogen there, remnants from the system's formation billions of years ago. It was too small and too dispersed to ever collapse into a star naturally. It would simply drift in space forever, inert and useless. The 7 Ford ships arranged themselves around the cloud in a new formation. This one was more complex, three-dimensional in a way that human brains struggled to visualize properly. The ships began their song again, but this time the harmonics were different. Faster, more aggressive. "What are you doing?" the Luminarch observer demanded. "You have proven your point. The demonstration is complete." "No," Jessica said. "We have proven we can heal. Now we prove we can create." The hydrogen cloud began to collapse. The Ford ships were manipulating gravity itself, creating artificial wells that pulled the dispersed gas inward. In nature, this process would take millions of years. The ships compressed millions of years into hours. The cloud shrank, growing denser and hotter. Pressure built at its center. Temperature climbed toward the threshold where fusion could begin. The Ford ships adjusted their resonance patterns continuously, maintaining the collapse, preventing it from becoming unstable. Over the next 72 hours, the Council observers watched in awe as humanity created a star from nothing. They watched as the hydrogen cloud collapsed into a sphere. They watched as the temperature at its core climbed higher and higher. They watched as fusion ignited. A new star was born. Not a giant, not a massive blue supergiant that would burn out quickly. A perfect yellow dwarf, almost identical to Tarsus Prime, stable and long-lived. A backup sun for the Tarsus system. Insurance against the great darkening ever returning. Jessica stood on the bridge of the Prometheus and watched the new star ignite. Around her, her crew was celebrating quietly, professional but proud. They had just done something that the elder races believed was impossible. They had proven that humanity, the youngest species in the Council, possessed technology that surpassed anything the ancient civilizations had achieved. "All ships well done," Jessica said over the fleet channel. "Prepare for return to human space. We have proven what we needed to prove." Before they could depart, one more transmission came through. It was from the first speaker of the Vistari, transmitted from the Grand Assembly Hall thousands of light years away. The first speaker must have been watching through the observer's feeds. The first speaker's voice rang with notes that Jessica's translator converted as profound respect and wonder. "Humanity," the first speaker said, "you have demonstrated power that we thought lost to the ages. You have shown technology that rivals the legends of the progenitors themselves. The Council acknowledges that we have underestimated your species. We have been arrogant and blind. You have our apology and our gratitude. The question now is, will you help us fight the Great Darkening?" Jessica looked out at the 2 stars of Tarsus, one healed and one newborn, both shining brightly in the darkness of space. "Yes," she said simply. "That is why we revealed ourselves. That is why we built the Ford ships. The Great Darkening threatens all civilized space. Humanity will not stand by and watch the galaxy die. We will fight, and we will win." She closed the channel and began giving orders for the fleet's departure. But as the Prometheus turned away from Tarsus, Jessica thought about the data she had seen during the healing process, the structured nature of the disruption, the purposeful way the star's fusion had been compromised. The Great Darkening was not a natural phenomenon. She was almost certain of that now. It was an attack. Something or someone was deliberately killing stars across the galaxy, and humanity had just declared their intention to fight back against whatever that something was. She hoped they were ready for what that fight would bring. The delegation from the Galactic Council arrived at Earth 3 days after the Tarsus demonstration. Ambassador Chen Wei met them at Luna Base, where humanity had prepared spaces that could accommodate the various forms of alien life. The Vistari needed crystal chambers filled with resonant frequencies. The Luminarchs required containment fields to maintain their coherence. The Crotha were easier, needing only standard atmosphere and gravity. But all of them, regardless of their physical needs, shared one thing: an overwhelming desire to understand how humanity had achieved the impossible. Chen led them through the public areas of Luna Base first, the parts that Council observers had seen many times before. Research laboratories working on ordinary projects, engineering bays building conventional ships. It all looked appropriately primitive, technology that was adequate but unremarkable compared to what the elder races possessed. Then he took them deeper, through security checkpoints that scanned for more than just weapons, through corridors that curved in directions that seemed wrong, that made the elder races uncomfortable because they suggested geometries that should not exist in normal space. Finally, they reached the Archive Central. The vast chamber opened before them and the delegation stopped, stunned by what they were seeing. Holographic displays showed the complete history of Project Genesis. Images of the Titan ruins, progenitor blueprints, 800 years of human research and construction. A Vistari observer named Crystal Song in Amber rang with notes of disbelief. "This is impossible. We surveyed your solar system when we first contacted you. We found nothing unusual on Titan, just frozen methane and water ice." Dr. Sarah Okonkwo stepped forward to explain. She had been chosen to lead the scientific briefing because of her decades of work on the project. "You found what we wanted you to find. When our ancestors discovered the progenitor ruins, they understood that if the Council learned of them, you would take control. So they hid the entrance again. They made it look natural. And they never told you." A Crotha delegate, its mechanical parts whirring with agitation, spoke in its synthesized voice. "You deceived the Council for 800 years. You presented yourselves as a primitive species while secretly developing technology that surpasses our own. This is a violation of trust." Chen turned to face the Crotha. "Is it? The Council treated humanity as children from the moment we joined. You dismissed our contributions, patronized our scientists, and made it clear that we would never be equals. You gave us no reason to trust you with the most important discovery in our history." Sarah activated the main display, showing the interior of the Titan ruins. The elder race delegates moved closer, their various forms of vision taking in the details. What they saw made them react with shock. The chambers were enormous, carved with precision that suggested technology far beyond anything the current galactic civilizations possessed. Machinery lined the walls, devices that incorporated principles of physics that should not be possible. And everywhere were the crystalline matrices that stored progenitor knowledge, still functional after billions of years. "These are genuine progenitor ruins," a Luminarch named Radiance Through Void pulsed with awe. "We have searched for evidence of the progenitors for millions of years. Some of us believed they were only myths. But this is real," Sarah nodded. "Very real. And very functional. The progenitors did not just leave ruins behind. They left a complete archive of their stellar engineering technology. They wanted it to be found. They wanted it to be used." She changed the display to show progenitor text, mathematical equations that made some of the delegates recoil because they described forces that violated known physics. Sarah had spent decades studying this text, and she still found new insights in it regularly. "The progenitors were the first civilization to achieve stellar engineering," Sarah continued. "They appeared in the universe shortly after the first natural stars formed. They discovered how to manipulate the fundamental forces that power stellar fusion, and they used that knowledge to build the first generation of artificial stars, seeding the galaxy with light." "Why?" Crystal Song in Amber asked. "Why would they do this?" "Because they believed that life required light," Sarah said simply. The natural formation of stars after the Big Bang was slow and chaotic. The progenitors wanted to accelerate the process to create stable stars that could support planetary systems and eventually life. They were trying to make the universe habitable. She pulled up more images showing the scale of progenitor operations. They had built thousands of stellar forge facilities throughout the galaxy. They had created entire regions of space filled with artificial stars. They had reshaped the cosmic landscape. And then they disappeared, a Crotha scientist observed. All known progenitor sites are ancient, billions of years old. "What happened to them?" Sarah's expression became grim. That is where things become concerning. Let me show you what we found in the deepest parts of the archive. She activated a new section of the display. This showed progenitor text that had taken human scientists centuries to translate because it used mathematical concepts that did not exist in current physics. The translation appeared in language that all the delegates could understand, and as they read it, the chamber grew silent. The text was a warning. A desperate message left by the progenitors in their final days. It spoke of something they called the architects of entropy, beings or forces that existed to maintain cosmic balance. The progenitors had discovered too late that the universe had defense mechanisms. When a civilization advanced too far, when they created too many stars, when they manipulated reality too freely, something responded. The architects of entropy had come, not as an invasion, not as a war, but as a correction. They had systematically destroyed the progenitor civilization, erasing their artificial stars, dismantling their facilities, removing the excess light they had created. The progenitors had fought back, but their technology, advanced as it was, proved useless against beings that operated on principles beyond their understanding. The last progenitor message was dated billions of years ago. It warned any future civilization that found their ruins. Stellar engineering attracted attention from forces that did not want the universe to be tamed. Creation summoned destruction. Light invited darkness. When Sarah finished presenting the warning, the chamber remained silent for a long moment. Each delegate was processing the implications. Humanity had revealed technology that could save the galaxy from the Great Darkening, but that same technology might bring down something worse. Radiance Through Void was the first to speak. You are saying that the Great Darkening might be caused by these architects of entropy? That it is not a natural phenomenon but an attack? Sarah nodded. We believe so. Commander Torres reported that when she healed Tarsus Prime, she observed patterns in the stellar disruption. It was not random degradation. It was structured, purposeful, almost like a computer virus, but affecting physical processes. Something is deliberately killing stars across the galaxy. And if we use your forged ships to fight back, a crow, the delegate said slowly, we might trigger a response from the architects. We might bring down the force that destroyed the progenitors. Yes, Sarah admitted. That is the risk. The progenitors warned us against doing exactly what we are proposing to do. An argument erupted among the delegates. Some insisted that the risk was too great, that the galaxy should abandon the dying systems and consolidate around stars that were still healthy. Others argued that billions of lives were at stake, that they could not simply abandon entire civilizations to darkness out of fear of something that might not even exist anymore. Chen let them argue for a while, then raised his hand for silence. The gesture was almost comically simple given the advanced beings present, but it worked. The chamber quieted. The council must decide, Chen said. Humanity has revealed our hidden arsenal. We have the technology to fight the Great Darkening. We can heal dying stars. We can create new ones. We can save trillions of lives. But we also accept that this may attract the attention of forces we do not fully understand. He paused, looking at each delegate in turn. Humanity has already made our decision. We will use the forged ships. We will fight the darkening. We will save as many civilizations as we can. The question is, will the council join us, or will you retreat to your fortified systems and wait for the darkness to pass? The Vistari delegate crystal song in amber rang with complex harmonics that the translator struggled to convert. Finally it settled on. This is too important a decision to make here. The entire council must debate this. We must return to the Grand Assembly Hall and present all that we have learned. Of course, Chen agreed. But while you debate, the darkening continues. More stars are failing. More civilizations are running out of time. Humanity will not wait for the council to reach consensus. We begin operations immediately. A Crotha delegate stepped forward, its mechanical parts clicking with what might have been anger or concern. You would act without council approval? That is a violation of protocols. Chen smiled coldly. The council was going to relocate humanity to reservation worlds. You were going to strip us of our independence and treat us as children who needed protection. I think we are past worrying about protocols. Sarah activated a new display, showing the positions of human forged ships throughout the galaxy. 47 vessels arranged in strategic locations near dying star systems. Each one was ready to begin operations. We are offering the council a choice, Sarah said. Work with us. Share your data on the darkening. Provide resources and support. We will save as many systems as we can together, or refuse to help. Retreat to your safe systems and watch as humanity fights this threat alone. And if the architects of entropy come? Radiance Through Void asked. What is your plan then? Then we fight them too, Chen said simply. Humanity has a saying. We did not come this far to only come this far. We have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and countless other threats on our birth world. We have built a civilization that spans multiple star systems. We have unlocked technology that predates your eldest races by billions of years. If these architects want to stop us, they are welcome to try. The delegates exchanged glances, or the equivalent for their various forms of existence. They had come to Earth expecting to find a subordinate species, grateful for council protection and eager to share their secrets. Instead, they had found a civilization that was polite but firm, willing to cooperate but not willing to be controlled. I will present this to the council, Crystal Song in Amber said finally. But I must warn you, not all elder races will support this course of action. Many will see the progenitor warning as decisive. They will argue for caution. Then the galaxy will split, Sarah said. Those who choose to fight will work with humanity. Those who choose to hide will be left to their fortifications. But the decision must be made quickly. Every day we delay, more stars die. The delegation departed soon after, returning to their ships for the journey back to the Grand Assembly Hall. Sarah and Chen watched them leave from the observation deck. They are terrified, Sarah observed. The elder races have been the masters of the galaxy for millions of years. They are not used to feeling helpless, and they are definitely not used to being surpassed by a species they considered primitive. Chen nodded. The council will split. Some will join us. Others will not. That was inevitable once we revealed the Ford ships. And the architects of entropy? Do you really think we can fight them if they appear? Chen was quiet for a moment, looking out at Earth rotating below. I think we have no choice but to try. The progenitors failed because they were unprepared. They did not understand what they were facing until it was too late. But we have their warning. We have their knowledge. And we have 800 years of human innovation building on their foundation. He turned to look at Sarah. Begin the operations. Deploy the Ford ships to the closest dying systems. Start with those where the darkening is most advanced. We will show the galaxy that humanity keeps its promises. Sarah activated her communication device and began sending orders. Throughout human space, Ford ships received their deployment commands. Crews prepared for missions that might save billions of lives. Support networks activated, ready to provide the resources needed for stellar engineering on a galactic scale. The revelation was complete. Humanity's hidden arsenal was no longer hidden. The Ford ships, built in secret over 8 centuries, were about to begin their real work. The galaxy would be saved or they would die trying. And if the architects of entropy responded, if the force that had destroyed the progenitors returned, then humanity would face that threat the same way they had faced every other challenge in their history, with courage, ingenuity, and an absolute refusal to accept defeat. Sarah looked out at the stars and thought about the coming days. The galaxy was about to change. The balance of power that had existed for millions of years was shifting. The elder races were no longer alone at the top of the technological hierarchy. Humanity had arrived, and they had brought tools that could reshape the cosmos. The Galactic Council split exactly as Chen had predicted. The Grand Assembly Hall became a place of bitter arguments and philosophical debates that lasted for weeks. Some elder races insisted that the progenitor warning must be heeded, that using stellar engineering technology risked bringing down the architects of entropy. Others argued that allowing billions to die out of fear was cowardice. In the end, roughly half the council members chose to join humanity's campaign against the Great Darkening. The Luminarch stood with humanity, declaring that they would rather burn brightly than fade into managed decline. Many Krotha factions joined as well, motivated by seeing their homeworld of Tarsus restored. Several smaller civilizations, desperate to save their dying stars, had no choice but to accept human help. The other half withdrew to fortified systems, building defensive networks around their healthiest stars and preparing to wait out whatever came. They called it prudence. The humans called it abandonment. Commander Jessica Torres stood on the bridge of the Prometheus and watched her tactical display. It showed the disposition of 7 human fleets, each one centered around a group of Ford ships, and accompanied by allied vessels from council members who had chosen to fight. Over 6 months, they had reclaimed 4,000 star systems, pushing back the Great Darkening system by system. The operation had become a carefully choreographed symphony. Human forged ships would arrive at a dying star and begin their work, supported by council vessels that provided resources, defense, and auxiliary functions. The healing process had been refined through repetition. What had taken 3 days at Tarsus now took less than 12 hours, but the darkening was not retreating. It was adapting. "Commander," Lieutenant Chen Park called from his station. "We are receiving reports from Fleet 7. They successfully healed the Vardic system, but sensors detected something unusual during the final phase." Jessica moved to his station and reviewed the data. Her expression grew troubled as she read. During the healing of the Vardic star, there had been a moment when the stellar disruption had resisted their efforts. Not passively, as damaged fusion processes would naturally resist repair, but actively, something had pushed back against the forged ship's resonance patterns. "Get me Dr. Okonkwo," Jessica ordered. The communication link opened a few moments later, showing Sarah's face. She was in the Titan archive, surrounded by holographic displays of progenitor text. She looked exhausted. For 6 months, she had been working non-stop, trying to understand the Great Darkening better and searching the progenitor records for any additional warnings or insights. "Jessica," Sarah greeted. "I saw the Vardic's data. You felt it too, the resistance. Like something was fighting our efforts to heal the star." Sarah nodded. "We have been seeing similar patterns in the last few weeks. The darkening is not just a passive phenomenon. It is intelligent, it learns. It is adapting to our techniques." She pulled up a comparison of stellar healing operations over time. The data was clear. Early healing operations had encountered minimal resistance, but recent operations showed increasing levels of interference, as if something was studying the forged ship's methods and developing countermeasures. "What does this mean?" Jessica asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "It means we got their attention," Sarah said grimly. "We have healed 4,000 stars. We have created new light in systems that were supposed to go dark. Whatever is causing the Great Darkening, whatever these architects of entropy are, they have noticed us." As if to emphasize her point, a priority alert flashed across Jessica's tactical display. Admiral Zhao's face appeared, his expression urgent. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Zhao. We have a situation developing in Sector 447. Fleet 3 was performing operations in the Califax system when something appeared, something we have never seen before. Commander Torres, I am sending you all available data. You need to see this." The data package arrived and Jessica opened it with a growing sense of dread. What she saw made her blood run cold. The recording showed Fleet 3 in the middle of healing operations on the Califax star. 3 forged ships had been working in formation, their resonance patterns successfully reigniting the star's fusion processes, and then something had appeared in the system. Not a ship, not a conventional object at all. It was an absence, a void in space that registered on sensors only by what it was not. Where it existed, there was nothing. No matter, no energy, not even space itself. It was a hole in reality, and it was growing. The forged ship Destiny, one of humanity's precious stellar engineering vessels, had been closest to the void when it appeared. The recording showed the ship attempting to maneuver away, but the void had expanded faster than the ship could move. When the void touched the Destiny, the ship simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, not blown apart, but erased as if it had never been. 2,000 crew members, gone in an instant. The void had continued to expand, consuming 2 Allied Council ships before it suddenly collapsed in on itself and disappeared. The entire encounter had lasted less than 5 minutes, but it had cost humanity one of their irreplaceable forged ships and killed thousands. "The architects have come," Sarah said quietly over the communication link. She was looking at the same data. "This is what destroyed the progenitors, not an enemy they could fight, but a force that simply unmakes things. How do you battle something that can erase you from existence?" Jessica was already thinking tactically, analyzing the data for patterns and weaknesses. The void appeared after we started healing the star. It targeted the forged ship specifically, ignoring the other vessels until they got close. It reacted to our stellar engineering, and then it collapsed on its own, Chen Park added. It did not remain to continue erasing things. It appeared, destroyed the forged ship, and vanished. Sarah pulled up the progenitor warnings again, reading through them with new understanding. The progenitors described the architects as cosmic gardeners. They do not invade or conquer. They prune. They remove excess growth and then withdraw. If we are right, these voids will appear wherever we use the Ford ships. They will target our stellar engineering operations. Then we are at an impasse, Admiral Zhao said. Every time we heal a star, we risk summoning these voids. But if we stop healing stars, the darkening continues and civilizations die. What do we do? Jessica stared at the tactical display, her mind racing through possibilities. There had to be an answer. Humanity had not come this far to be stopped by an enemy they could not understand. What if we are thinking about this wrong? She said slowly. The progenitors tried to fight the architects directly and failed. But they were thinking like engineers, like builders. They tried to create better shields, stronger ships, more powerful weapons. None of it worked because the voids do not operate on those principles. What are you suggesting? Sarah asked. The voids erase things. They unmake reality. But what if we create something they cannot unmake? Something that exists in a state that paradoxes their function? Sarah's eyes widened as she understood. Quantum entanglement at stellar scales. If we create stars that exist in superposition, partially in our dimension and partially in higher dimensions, the voids would not be able to target them properly. Attempting to erase one state would force them to erase both states simultaneously, which would create a logical impossibility. Chen Park looked skeptical. Can we even do that?
Create quantum-entangled stars?
The progenitor records mention it, Sarah said, already pulling up the relevant texts. They called them bridge stars. They used them to connect different regions of space, but we never attempted to recreate them because they are incredibly complex and dangerous. If the entanglement fails, both stars could collapse into black holes. But it might work against the voids, Jessica said. If we are going to continue fighting the darkening, we need a defense against the architects. Bridge stars might be that defense? Admiral Zhao nodded slowly. Make it happen. Modify one of the Ford ships to create these bridge stars. Test it in a remote location. If it works, we retrofit the entire fleet, and we change our strategy. We do not just heal stars anymore. We make them immune to whatever these voids are doing. Over the next 2 months, humanity worked at a pace that impressed even themselves. Engineers modified the Ford ship Atlantis to incorporate the bridge star technology. Scientists ran thousands of simulations, testing different configurations. And Dr. Okonkwo led a team that studied every scrap of progenitor data on quantum stellar engineering. The test came in a remote system, far from any inhabited worlds. The Atlantis, accompanied by a fleet of support vessels and observer ships, attempted to create the first bridge star. The process was terrifying to watch. The Ford ship's resonance patterns became incredibly complex, creating harmonics that resonated across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Space itself seemed to bend and twist around the forming star. For a moment, it looked like the attempt would fail catastrophically. The hydrogen cloud they were collapsing began to destabilize, and sensor readings showed the beginnings of a gravitational collapse that could create a black hole. But the Atlantis crew adjusted their patterns at the last second, and the star ignited successfully. It was beautiful and strange. The bridge star existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that human senses could not properly perceive. Looking at it made observers' eyes water, as their brains struggled to process light coming from directions that should not exist. And when they tested it by summoning a void, using Ford ship resonance patterns that had previously attracted the architects, nothing happened. Or more precisely, a void began to form, but it could not complete its manifestation. The quantum entanglement of the bridge star created a logical impossibility that the void could not resolve. The void attempted to form, failed, and collapsed immediately. It works, Jessica breathed. We can create stars that the architects cannot target. The news spread through the Allied fleets like wildfire. Humanity modified their Ford ships as quickly as possible, incorporating the bridge star technology. It was not easy work. The modifications required incorporating components that existed partially in higher dimensions, which meant building parts that looked geometrically impossible and behaved according to physics that made conventional scientists uncomfortable. But it was done. Within 3 months, the entire human fleet had been upgraded, and they began a new campaign. Not just healing dying stars, but converting them into bridge stars that could resist both the Great Darkening and the architects of entropy. The galaxy began to change. Regions that had been darkening started to stabilize. Stars that had been dying were not just healed, but upgraded, made more stable than they had been originally. The tide was turning, but the architects noticed this new development. And they adapted. The final confrontation came at the galactic core, where the Great Darkening had originated. The Allied fleet, now numbering over 100,000 ships from dozens of species, converged on the core. All 46 remaining human-forged ships were present, forming the heart of the fleet. The plan was ambitious. They would ignite thousands of new stars simultaneously throughout the core region, all of them bridge stars that the architects could not target. The sheer amount of new light, new energy, new creation would overwhelm the darkening completely. Jessica stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, now the flagship of the combined fleet. Around her, the crew prepared for the largest stellar engineering operation ever attempted, not just healing or creating individual stars, but reshaping an entire region of the galaxy. All ships report ready, Chen Park announced. Forged ships in formation. Support vessels standing by. Allied fleets providing perimeter defense. Jessica took a deep breath. Begin the symphony of creation. All 46 forged ships began to sing as one. Their resonance patterns merged, creating harmonics that spread across thousands of light years. Throughout the galactic core, clouds of hydrogen began to collapse. Not naturally, not slowly, but in a coordinated cascade triggered by technology that predated the elder races by eons. The architects responded. Hundreds of voids appeared throughout the core, enormous absences in reality that attempted to erase the formation of new stars, but they could not complete their manifestation. Each time a void tried to form around one of the new bridge stars, it encountered the quantum entanglement and collapsed in on itself. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted for 72 hours. It was not a battle of weapons or violence. It was a battle of fundamental principles: creation versus entropy, light versus darkness, the determination of living beings to survive versus the cold logic of cosmic balance, and creation won. When it was over, the galactic core blazed with thousands of new stars. Bridge stars that existed in stable quantum entanglement, immune to the architect's influence, burning brightly and providing light and heat to worlds throughout the region. The Great Darkening had been defeated, not destroyed but overwhelmed. There was too much light now, too much creation for the entropy to grasp. Jessica watched the new stars ignite across the core, and she felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Humanity had done it. They had saved the galaxy. But she also felt a sense of vigilance. The architects were still out there, pushed back but not destroyed. And humanity had just painted a target on themselves by proving they could resist cosmic forces that had destroyed the progenitors. Ambassador Chen Wei addressed the council from the Grand Assembly Hall 3 weeks after the core operation. The chamber was full, including members who had previously withdrawn to fortified systems. They had returned after seeing what humanity and the Allied forces had accomplished. The Great Darkening has been defeated, Chen announced. Over 10,000 stars have been healed or created using progenitor technology. Trillions of lives have been saved. Thousands of civilizations no longer face the prospect of darkness and death. He paused, looking at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. But this is not the end. It is a beginning. The architects of entropy are real. They exist. They will challenge us again. Whenever civilizations advance too far or create too much light, we must be ready. The first speaker of the Vistari rang with notes of respect. What do you propose, Ambassador? A new institution, Chen said. The Stellar Corps, a permanent organization staffed by personnel from all allied species, dedicated to maintaining and creating stars throughout the galaxy. We keep the bridge star technology. We establish watch stations on the rim of the galaxy to monitor for architect activity, and we prepare for the day when they return. With humanity and leadership, I assume, a skeptical Crotha representative said. Chen smiled. Humanity will contribute what we do best: stubbornness and refusal to accept defeat. But this will be a joint effort. We have all seen that cooperation achieves more than isolation. The elder races have wisdom and experience we lack. Together we are stronger. The vote was overwhelming. The Stellar Corps was established, with humanity providing the forged ship technology and crews trained in stellar engineering. Other species contributed resources, personnel, and knowledge. The galaxy entered a new age of cooperation. Sarah Okonkwo was appointed the first director of stellar engineering for the new Corps. On her first day in the role, she stood in the Titan archive and looked at the progenitor warnings one more time. The progenitors had written, "We learned too late that creation summons destruction." But they also left their technology behind, hoping someone would find it and use it better than they had. Humanity had found it, and they had used it to save a galaxy, not by avoiding the architects, not by hiding from cosmic forces, but by meeting them head-on and finding a solution that the progenitors had never discovered. Sarah thought about the future. The stellar core would grow. They would create more bridge stars. They would push the boundaries of what was possible, and eventually, probably, the architects would return with new strategies, new methods of pruning what they saw as excess growth. But when that day came, humanity and their allies would be ready. They had learned from the progenitors' mistakes. They had united the galaxy in a common cause, and they had proven that the forces of creation could triumph over entropy when they had the courage to fight. The human species, born on a small world circling an ordinary star, had become the inheritors of the progenitor's will. They were the new star shapers, the architects of light in a universe that tended toward darkness, and they would never stop fighting to keep the light burning. Jessica Torres returned to the Prometheus after 6 months of continuous operations. The ship was scheduled for refit and maintenance, and the crew needed rest. She walked through the corridors, seeing the wear and tear from hard use, the modifications they had made in the field, the small personal touches that crew members had added to make the ship feel like home. In her quarters, she stood at the observation port and looked out at the stars. So many of them now glowed with the distinctive quantum shimmer of bridge stars, humanity's gift to the galaxy. Each one represented lives saved, civilizations preserved, futures secured. There was a chime at her door. Chen Park entered, carrying 2 bulbs of coffee, a human custom he had developed a taste for during their long deployments. "To the Prometheus," he said, handing her one of the bulbs. "And to her crew. We did good work." "We did impossible work," Jessica corrected with a smile. "But humans specialize in the impossible." They touched their bulbs together in a toast and drank. Outside the observation port, 10,000 stars burned brightly in the darkness, a testament to what could be achieved when species refused to accept defeat. The architects of entropy were still out there, waiting in the spaces between dimensions. The great darkening might return in some new form. The galaxy would face other crises, other challenges that seemed insurmountable. But humanity had proven something important. They could fight cosmic forces and win. They could take technology from a dead civilization and make it work better than the original creators had managed. They could unite a divided galaxy in common purpose. And most importantly, they had shown that the youngest species in the Galactic Council was not primitive or inferior. They were just getting started. Ambassador Chen Wei had the final word, transmitted across all council channels in the months after the core operation. It became something of an unofficial motto for the Stellar Core, words that captured humanity's philosophy. We humans learned something our ancestors knew instinctively. The universe does not care about us. It will crush us if we let it. So we do not let it. We were born in the light of one small star, and we have ensured that 10,000 stars will burn for the civilizations yet to come. Let the architects return. We will be waiting. And we will have made 10,000 more stars by then. The great darkening had been defeated. The hidden arsenal had been revealed. And humanity had claimed their place not just as members of the Galactic Council, but as leaders of a new age. The age of the Starshapers had begun.